Let's talk Sinestro by Jeff Johns. Okay, I don't read a lot of Green Lantern. I read some of it back at Blackest Night, and I kind of started reading a little bit of War of the Green Lanterns before I'd lost interest in it and dropped it, but now I'm kind of coming back into it since we have this over-glorified jumping on point for it. Jeff Johns is also a bit of a mixed bag to talk about in the regards that, people like what he's done with the Green Lantern mythology, and a lot of people think he's overrated. Whether or not that's true or not, I'm actually impressed with what he wrote for the first trade of this new Green Lantern series. Now, I actually come to like this. Between what he's done with that, Secret Origin, and Blackest Night, I probably have to like this probably as number 2. I think this is the second best thing that I've read from him as far as the Green Lanterns go. People vary on how they feel about his version of the Secret Origin of Green Lantern. I actually rather enjoyed it. And I wish that if they were using that as a basis for the Ryan Reynolds movie, they had used Atrocitus as a villain instead of Parallax, but that's just me. Anyways, but the first volume, Sinestro for the New 52. This is one of those stories from the New 52, which is a continuance point, or at least as much of one as they can muster in here. And for the most part, I did enjoy this book. I do have a few complaints with it, as I do with a lot of things, but this in particular is going to be for the fact of how short the issues were, in my opinion. I bought this book, I literally read it within less than an hour. That doesn't mean I didn't get some satisfactory stuff from it, but a lot of times what I've been complaining with certain books, some of them from DC particularly, do not read well in single issues, because I feel like if I'm shoveling out $4 for the book, I don't feel like I'm getting my money's worth out of something that has very little dialogue to it. And this is kind of one of those problems. But basically, our problems begin for Hal Jordan, where we kind of reset things in this new world. Hal Jordan's been kicked out of the Corps again, and somehow Sinestro was wound up with the ring. While this is going on, they're forcing Sinestro to recite the oath in the first issue, and the first thing that he does after he flies off, the other Guardians gang up on Ganthet and lobotomize him back into being one of the emotional pricks like the rest of them. And the first thing that they talk about is building up a third army, since the Green Lanterns are getting out of hand. Now, for readers who are not understanding this, thankfully, this is one of those points to where this is still a continuity-heavy book. You don't have to read what happened with the Manhunters way back when on Oa, but you can kind of get that, and you can kind of get the sense that the Guardians are starting to have trouble with the Corps. In this case, I kind of know that they have problems with, or that the Guardians had problems with the Lanterns kind of defying them before. A new reader should be okay with that, but I kind of recommend not only just going back and reading for some possibly good stuff in John's Green Lantern run. It might do to help you familiarize yourself with Ganthet and him wanting to take the Corps in the new direction at the time he was doing it. What happening with Jordan on Earth while Sinestro was going off and investigating his Corps turning against him after he's allied up with the Green Lanterns, and they're pretty much slaughtering his people on Karagar. Jordan, he cannot get a job as a pilot. He's having a hard time making ends meet. Hal Jordan has basically become Peter Parker. And that is, he's Peter Parker, but he's like Danny Ketch after he lost the Ghost Rider powers, where, thought he would be happy without the stupid thing. And then we have the typical, but I miss having the power because it's intoxicating to me. And Johns is kind of doing this with him. Alright. Sinestro realizes that he can't take out his own Corps alone and save his planet, so he goes back to Earth. And we're actually seeing more new stuff done with the rings. Sinestro constructs a ring up for Jordan, forces him to wear it, and say, "Here's the catch. You know, you missed being a Green Lantern. I'm going to let you keep your powers, but you're going to be my little bitch, and you're going to do what I say." Now, for the first 3 issues, he carries out this scenario, which, quite hilariously, I might add. But the only thing is that Sinestro is supposed to be portrayed as kind of enjoying this a little bit, but he doesn't look like he's doing it all that much. We finally get off the planet and we go to Karagar, and, you know, we kind of take care of the problem with the core. This book is called Sinestro, and it's kind of trying to, you know, give some dimension to the character. I'm going to be honest here. I didn't really see a whole lot of dimension to Sinestro, because, you know, he's supposed to be made to look like he feels sorry for what he's done to subjugating his people to, you know, a martial law type thing. He wants order in the galaxy, but he's kind of one of those motherfuckers who's gonna do it by any means necessary. And I don't know, the character portrayal for Sinestro just doesn't really work for me in this. And I thought that things worked out a little too good for Hal and Carol at the end of the story to begin with. There's some interesting ideas explored here. There's yet more new stuff that the rings do that, you know, Jordan apparently did not know about, but Sinestro knew. And he's like sitting there and it's like, oh, see, this is what you get for listening to the Guardians. And, you know, I don't know if Sinestro's trying to make Jordan feel better, if he's just enjoying, you know, making him just feel like crap by all the stuff that Sinestro's pulling on him. The character stuff is hard to grasp in this book. It's not really something that's just reaching out and grabbing me. Action-wise in the story, everything's carrying out pretty good. There may be a couple of ideas with the way that a couple of things work, especially when they try and infiltrate the Sinestro Corps battery, that might contradict some other things that Johns had set up in his previous works on the Green Lantern. So that's kind of a bother. The art and the story, I've seen some of Doug Mankey's stuff. The art in the story is good for the most part. But for some reason I don't like the way that he draws faces and close-ups. They kind of remind me of the artist whose name I can't remember, who helped Garth Ennis and Jason Aaron write Punisher Max. When he was drawing the semi-cartoon looking faces. Upon close-ups, you know, from when they're doing like far-off angles on the faces, the art looks okay, but when they get up in on the faces, they kind of look like, you know, Punisher Max art faces. The bottom line with this particular volume, I feel kind of shortchanged with it, just based on the content. We get some foreshadowing setting up to what's hinted at as being the Guardians' plan for the Third Army, and there's a little bit of some stuff further from the Book of Black that Sinestro gets into, and he gets the head rush trip of what's to come from it. There's some interesting stuff set up in here. Characterization is flawed mostly throughout this book, but for an action adventure, wait until this comes out in softcover and you can pay a cheaper price for it than I did. I would still recommend it based on you know, story and action, but character stuff, I think Johns needs to work on that a little bit more.